Chris Limo is a believer of dreams, of miracles, of numerous second chances. A believer in the possibility of life, no matter where you are or coming from. Born and bred in Nairobi, grew up in Nairobi all my life, and yeah, so in Nairobi West actually, that I was brought up. Uh, that in 19, oh, yeah, 1971. Yeah, I'm a young woman. Growing up was interesting because I was born a twin, um, and my twin sister was, we were, exact opposites. Complexion, personality types in terms of even our temperament. She was the wild one, kind of adventurous spirit, and I was a quiet one who, I'm told she didn't like eating, and my mom, they had to, they didn't know when I was satisfied, when I was full, because every time I saw a spoon, I just opened my mouth. So they decided for me that he's had enough, and as long as he doesn't cry, they're okay. So it was interesting being an only boy in a single parent household with an elder sister, a twin sister, and normally, until much later, female house helps. So that's what it was like for me. It was, um, like the other day I saw a video going around about a chicken among ducks, and it was walking like a duck. But clearly not everything that walks like a duck and talks like a duck is a duck. So for me, that's what it was like. There was a lot of that feminine energy. Before you leave the house, you have to oil your skin, and that continues today. I do not know how to go out without applying lotion. It was a bit confusing when people would say, oh yeah, she should have been born the boy, he should have been born the girl. And that's confusing because, you see, for a child, or this Chris Limo, who was a child, did not know how to process that kind of information. Does that mean I can go back to that supermarket, where kids are told they come from, and get a gender change? Because if I was born a girl and I could, it's not developed, that kind of thinking. But what do I do now that I was not born a girl, and I don't think I had anything to do with it? And often, the messaging was not very flattering when I'm being told that you should have been born a girl, because it looked either I was not displaying manly tendencies, or when you're told, kill that spider, that's what men do, and I'm also scared. I'm also scared of the spiders myself. Yeah, so it was, as a child, and then primary school, I was in the previous system, it wasn't that difficult. For me, it wasn't, I can't say it was that difficult. It wasn't, it was just really just flowing through life until adolescence. Yeah, now that's where now you see the boys and the girls get separated, and that's where now it doesn't matter the background you are. Whether I'm born, the only boy, but that's where the differentiation really came in. Physically, emotionally, socially, spiritually, and that kind of thing. And that was very confusing. And again, even more confusing because you remember the questions in my childhood about whether I should have been born a boy or a girl were not answered. But now here I come to adolescence, go to an only boys school, and really listen to my classmates, how they relate with their fathers, and how they relate with each other, and how they relate, the conversations. And so it was also more confusion, rather than settlement, rather than more answers. And and it's just wondering, what's this I've got? What are these cards? What kind of cards have I been dealt with? And very few answers at the time. So adolescence was turbulent until booze showed up, and that was the answer I did not know I was looking for, because it calmed me down. It just kept the noises in my head, it quieted them up, and in fact, even the first few drinks I could remember, I would say they answered the question and said, it is okay. Now, you'd imagine something like God is the one who'd answer that question. But for me, it was alcohol that quieted those noises down. My journey with alcoholism began, I would say it began as soon as I was born. Why? Because the part of saying that, it has proven that it runs it's genetic. There is a genetic predisposition to alcoholism, and that, I got that coding, both, from my mom's side of the family, and indeed even now later I heard about my father's side. So the genetic coding was there. But also, alcoholism is not just about the drinking. It's also a societal issue, it's a spiritual issue, it's an emotional issue. It's biological, and so for me, what I would say in terms of the emotional, when I drank, my emotions settled, because I did not know who to ask these questions of the things, that confusion that I was going through, because again, the societal messaging comes with, or came with, at least for me, men are a certain way. Men are responsible. Men are, strong. Men are, so that kind of messaging, when it came like that, and I felt anything but strong, responsible, anything but brave, courageous, those societal standards of masculinity. I didn't feel them. I can't tell you I experienced them. So it was very confusing that if that's what men are and I'm not feeling it, then there's something the matter with me. Later I'm realizing now that it's also it's also a matter with the society. Here I was with a twin sister who was hugely popular, an extrovert, a sanguine, who was the life of the party. And I was, the extreme opposite. I was the introvert, the shy guy, the guy who really preferred to be on his own. And there was no affirmation that it's okay to be that way, that it's okay to get time by yourself. It's okay to be the message we hear, be yourself. That message is loud out here, but they, at times I hear that they don't quite mean it. You're being told to be yourself, but you still have to fit in a role of something, whatever it is, as an employee, as a citizen, as a woman, as a man. It's like they really don't mean it. But now I'm later in recovery and discovery that's the actual journey, life journey. I think it should be personal journey, everybody's personal journey. So that part about what did alcohol do for me? At times, because it has some stimulating effect, especially the first 2 beers, because usually you go on to the 13th, 14th, it's a depressant. The first 2 beers gave me some false courage, so that if I was going on a date, for instance, I'd have 2 beers so that I can have something to say during the date, because I didn't know what people talk about. I didn't know do you talk about the weather? Do you talk about, I didn't know. But so what I found when alcohol did that, I just got some false confidence. But the problem is I needed more than the 2 beers, because remember, there was the wiring, then there was the environment, and then those two factors just wanted me to have even more and more alcohol. So when did I start drinking? I would say around 14, 15. That's when I really, we drank with my classmates. And yes, I look at 14-year-olds now and I say, God, they're babies. And where are they? But alcohol was available in our home, in our friends' homes. So even as children, as younger than 14, I would have access to alcohol, maybe a glass of beer, a glass of wine. I'd sip and I would take, I'd steal, and but I would say when adolescence kicked in around that 12, 13, 14, 15, that's when alcohol, I can say I used it to medicate and to numb the pain and the confusion. And yeah, so I can say that really for me, because there are different types. There are people who drink and then become alcoholic. Then there are alcoholics who start drinking when they are, because alcoholism has very little to do with it. I mean, the drinking is just a part of alcoholism. It's not the alcoholism. So yeah, so that I would say 15. That's when and then went on for another 12 years until I got the real help that I was looking for, that I didn't even know I was looking for actually. Yes. At that 15, I knew there was a problem. I wasn't either honest enough or bold enough to admit it. And because the way I presented myself, especially out there to my friends and my classmates, was I was okay. And at home, I was a terror. There was a violence, there was a anger. In fact, yeah, anger. And I don't know where it came from really. I guess it just, maybe in not getting the answers that I was seeking and did not know how to even articulate them. So for me, I knew that. In fact, I remember one time going to Carnival and admiring this guy who was a class ahead of me. So I think we're in third form, he was in fourth form or second form, and he was in third form, whenever. And he would stay the whole night and drink soda and secretly I wish, and he looked like he was enjoying himself, which to me, just seemed very confusing. How do you enjoy yourself on a soda? So I knew, I could honestly say I knew pretty much as soon as I started drinking, there was a problem. I started my journey in sobriety, I'd say maybe there are times I started looking for help. And the only help we knew then was either the medical profession or going to church. And maybe in the late 90s, when my life really was falling apart right in front of my eyes, I started looking for help. But the thing is, you see, I still didn't have the boldness to ask for it because, I'd already messed up at home, my reputation. So that even if I came and asked for help, the way I felt is that if I did, they would, first of all, they would not believe me. And two, they did. Now I realize they wouldn't have known what kind of real help I needed. Why? Because that time, as opposed to now in the late 90s, it was really the medical profession, psychiatrists. And counseling, I can't say there was that familiarity about counseling. But so it was in the late 90s because stuff had happened now. I had lost a baby son. I had a relationship where I was violent. I had ruined all my relationship with my significant others at home and even with my close friends. And I was worried. I was really worried because one of the things I had been told, where I come from is that I remember an auntie telling me, in the old days, people like you who do the things you do, what used to happen to them is that they are taken and they're ostracized and thrown out into the forest so that either other tribes, if they are lucky, take them on, or animals grab them. On a spiritual level, alcoholism presents itself as a broken soul. So it's not sin, it can't be sin. So what I don't do is recommend cheap rehabs. I recommend during interventions, we have a conversation and then I say, by the way, these solutions to this issue is all here. So what I tell an alcoholic, it's possible. If they're high, nothing. But an alcoholic who wants to stop, I tell them it's possible. I tell them it's not an easy process. It's simple because usually we talk about avoiding the first drink by saying, one drink is too much and 1,000 are not enough. So if they do want, and I commit, I say, I'll hold your hand through this process. Why? Because I've met people who also held mine and continue to do so. And so, and we say it's a process of, where you will experience happiness, joy, and freedom. Why do I say this? Because I have experienced it. That's why I talk about I'm a believer of miracles. If anything, I rely on miracles. Why? Because I'm one. There are many things I'd tell an alcoholic, but again, it depends on what they ask. Because at times they say, I don't have a job. I need to get a job, then I stop drinking. Then now I'll be maybe honest and say, look, if you're drinking this much without a job, surely, if it's about finances. So let's deal with first things first, rather than, or like somebody came recently and told me how they were feeling self-pity. They were experiencing self-pity because of the wasted time they feel. And you see, I can relate because of the wasted opportunities. And mine now was just to encourage them and tell them, by the way, that is the disease, because I believe alcoholism in some aspects is a disease. And I tell them that's a disease talking, telling you, to feel sorry for yourself, poor you, and that there is no hope. And tell them, no, there is always hope. So let's deal with the emotion without having to drink fast, because it will pass. Feelings are not permanent. They pass, and they're just an indicator of where we are. They're like maps or, traffic lights and signboards. So we just acknowledge the feelings. We are not our feelings, and then we take it from there. The recovery process begins with admitting and accepting that I've messed up. And it begins by saying, me and booze, we can never, in a fight, I can never beat it. I can never fight alcohol and win. So I need to accept, and that's 100% acceptance. It needs to have no reservations whatsoever. So I need to accept. And that acceptance really is just, it's a way, there are many ways to get there. But the simplest way is look in the mirror. Do you like what you see? Often is the no. Yeah. And say, okay, now I don't like what I see, and this is alcohol that has done this to me. So, so that's acceptance. And just looking at my life and seeing, enyewe, that the way my life has turned out is because really alcoholism had a lot to do with it, if not everything. Yeah, so acceptance and awareness of even the damage, actually the damage it has caused. Because somebody will come and say that, for instance, I was driving at 3 a.m., I was drunk, I had an accident, but anybody who drove there, would have had an accident. So they said, no, it was wet, it was raining, but you were drunk, so and alcohol, being intoxicated affects your judgment on the road. So you need to recognize what kind of damages it has come with. Again, we just can even look at finances. How much has it cost you? And not just the amount of booze you bought, but even the fees you didn't pay, the rent you didn't pay. That perhaps your lifestyle has also been downgraded because of that, prioritizing on alcoholism, on drinking, and the kind of life, the kind of other illnesses that you've gotten as a result. So acceptance, and acceptance and admitting that it has beaten me. Yeah. Some of the significant things that have happened in my sobriety is, first of all, we say sobriety is its own reward. Everything else is added. But just not drinking despite even reasons to not to drink. So that to me was a major achievement. In fact, even when I turned a year in sobriety, I said, wow. And the other thing is, going back to school was a 15-year prayer answered. Getting married, having my son. I have a son, my 19-year-old son, and just really just accepting him, because I didn't immediately. Why? I did not know what to be a father looked like, but the time I did, and saying, look, let's take on this journey. I do not know how it will look like. So now he's in my life, and I'm in his. To me, that's a major victory. Being married, getting, first of all, even, dating, and then asking my then girlfriend out and to be my girlfriend, and then 8 months later we walked down the aisle, and now it's been just over 4 years. those are significant milestones in and of themselves that I asked. So I'm in a marriage that, you know, honestly, 20 something years ago, I wouldn't have considered it. If I considered marriage, it wouldn't have been to India. Because I felt, she'd have needed a better Chris, a better somebody. And here we are, really happy. In fact, somebody says, honeymoons are not supposed to extend this long. Going to school was a prayer answered because I had prayed, I'd wanted to go back to school. Why? Because I dropped out of uni when I was 21 and never went back until when I was 44. And, that 23-year wait and completing a degree, a 30-year degree in 4 years. So to me, that's a significant milestone. People, and just having family, family, people calling to say hi, not calling to say, oh, I hear you messed up again. Or, yeah, they're just calling to say hi. There's nothing big. To me, that restoration of family is big time. Having true friends, real friends, friendships, and even being a friend, because again, I wasn't. So those are the things. And having a meaningful life where I can have even a God that makes sense. Because again, then when I was drinking, that did not make sense. One of the things I'd be told, God loves you. And the first question I asked, why? Why does he love this? Because I honestly believed I was an afterthought. And maintaining and getting more awareness and increased common sense about life and just knowing what not to do and what to do. So those are significant. And even coming through depression, because I had been diagnosed 5 years into sobriety with clinical depression, and I went on to be on medication for another 6 years. And that was a painful time. It was a very dark time and very confusing because I was not drinking. And I wondered, what's the point? What's the point of doing this journey? Just coming through that, through a lot of therapy, and yes, and a lot of support from, significant support, because again, depression is not very well understood. Again, just like because of the broken soul, we can't see. And one of the things I used to be asked, sasa unasema uko depressed na una bibi. So even you can imagine the kind of messaging that even marriage, the bad rap it's getting, that you should only get depressed if you're married, and perhaps if you're a man. Yeah. Is it possible to stop when somebody comes to me and they're struggling with alcoholism? Absolutely. Why? Because here I am. Here I am. Is it easy? No. I'd love to say it is. But it's the good thing is that you just start with today. And it's not even swearing off. Even for the fact that I've not even had a drink that long, today I still don't swear that I'll never drink again. And I don't have to. And that's something I used to do every weekend, if not every day. So I tell them it's possible. Why? Because they are alive. Just the fact that they are alive, it's possible. And there's support available. And, for different aspects of their lives, there's sufficient support. And miracles. Always leave room for miracles. I'd say, keep an open mind, and reach out, ask for help. There's help available. And the thing that I was given, for instance, was when I was told, we will love you until you learn to love yourself. And depressive me was worried. And then what? They told me, well, we'll continue loving you anyway. So that's what they'll also get. We will surround them, if they reach out, we'll surround them with real and true love, which is a word that has a bad rap, especially among African men. We don't quite use it, usefully. And so I tell them it's possible, just for the single fact that they're alive. Yeah.